Welcome to today's event. And today we'll share important information on creating regional collaboratives, partnerships between business and education to help our students to truly become career and college ready. I should point out that this institute is not intended to serve as a workshop for the Career Pathways Grant. The CDE will be conducting grant application workshops just after the first of the year when the grant is released. And we have, I would also like to take this time to thank, first of all, the Senate staff for providing a live video feed of this event today. We appreciate that. And we also appreciate Center High School Partnership Academy on video production. We have a couple of students and teacher here today who are providing video of the total conference, including the breakout sessions that will be posted on the web at a later date. So those of you that are here and want to review some of the information that's shared today, or those of you that are unable to be here today because that was the hottest ticket in town, will have the opportunity to see that as soon as we post that. And we'll notify you when those videos become available. But today we're really going to focus on developing high-quality career pathways. We greatly appreciate your attendance today, especially during this holiday season. Interest in our institute has frankly been overwhelming. We have 3 institutes today in Sacramento, tomorrow in Clovis, and the last one on Thursday in LA. And if you've ever tried to get Rolling Stones tickets, I think we beat their record. Especially for the LA Institute. The LA Institute actually, we went by email responses, and within 10 minutes, the LA Institute was full, beyond capacity. So it's really been, like I said, the hottest ticket in town. And the interest has really been phenomenal. And for that reason, we've decided to try to videotape all the sessions. So as I said today, Center High School is here today, videotape the whole event. We've made arrangements with another high school course to videotape the presentation tomorrow in Clovis, and we're working on one and hope to have the LA Institute videotaped also by high school students. So during the Institute today, you'll specifically learn about the look and feel of career pathways through a nationwide effort known as a Pathways to Prosperity Network. California is a part of that network. And we seek to ensure that more youth complete high school and are ready to further their education and/or enter the workforce. Today you'll hear from many experts, people who have been there and done that. And let's begin with vision and opportunity. So at this time, I'd like to introduce to you Christopher Gabaldon, Mayor of West Sacramento, and representative from Link Learning Alliance. So Christopher.
All right, forget that whole mayor thing, please. But let me just clarify for the breakouts. You can bring drinks, but we do ask that beer and wine only, no hard liquor, except for the 914 Career Pathways one, in which there should be no drinks at all. So welcome and thank you. It's great to see so many leaders from throughout the Sacramento region, and actually all of Northern California. I see principals, superintendents, teachers, business leaders, intermediary leaders, post-secondary faculty and leaders, economic development professionals, community college. The whole sector is here. And as Russ said, we're not here just about the Career Pathways Trust Fund. There is a huge amount of work going on in this sector generally. Many of you are participants in the AB 790 Link Learning District pilot program. Others are preparing your applications for the Federal Youth Career Connect program. Others are designing your local control accountability plans with an eye towards college and career readiness. And so today's session is intended to support all of that work that's going on in this region and elsewhere to support quality systems of regional career pathways. So we'd like to invite our panel to join us, and we've got a super high-powered panel as part of today's session. And so I'd like to invite Senator Darrell Steinberg, Deputy Superintendent of Public Instruction Lupis Cortez Alcala, Chancellor Bryce Harris, and the Executive Director of the California Workforce Investment Board, Tim Rainey, to the chairs. So let me just start with a rapid fire question, and then we'll get to know each of you as we get into the details. But let's just start as we're launching today. If you could give us just one reason, one quick, rapid reason why the folks here today ought to be interested in regional systems of career pathways. And maybe start with the Deputy Superintendent, Lupita Cortez Alcala, who is here on behalf of Superintendent Tom Torlakson.
I think the superintendent thinks it makes sense. It simply makes sense to arm the secondary schools with post-secondary and industry, and making sure that our dropouts, our dropout rates lessens, our graduation rate increases. It's just that time. We need students to be college and career ready. Industry's telling us that. The recession is telling us that. So it just makes sense.
And Chancellor Harris, you've been a regional business leader elsewhere. You've been the head of a community college. You've been the leader of one of the state's most innovative and largest community college districts right here in the Los Rios region, and now leading all of California's community colleges. Same question. Why should people care about regional systems of career pathways?
I think one of the things we've realized over the last decade or more is that whereas in the 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s we saw cities and towns and even states competing with one another within the confines of the U.S. Now what we realize is that we are in a global competitive environment, and we see regions competing with one another. So in California, for example, depending on how you look at the state, there are 3 or 4 huge mega regions, and then those are broken down into smaller regions, and we find those regions competing with the Phoenix region or Kansas City, Missouri, or internationally with regions in other parts of the globe. And so if we can crack our workforce code regionally, and that's what we're trying to do in the community colleges in California, is through our initiative called Doing What Matters for Jobs in the Economy, we're trying to regionalize the workforce education delivery in California, because we think that's the secret to global competitiveness.
So Tim Rainey at the California Workforce Investment Board, you were watching you as the chancellor was talking. It looked like we were in church and you were about to yell, "Preach!" You seem very much aligned with what the community colleges are thinking about this issue. From the perspective of the workforce investment system, why should folks care about regional systems of pathways?
There are 49 local workforce boards in the state of California. We get $400 million every year. And we've asked them all to identify target industry sectors, and they did that. And Doing What Matters really pushed the colleges to do the same. Identify target sectors, those that have the best potential for lots of jobs in the next 5 to 10 years. And what we found out was the workforce boards in a region, there could be 5 in a single region. There might be several colleges, well, there are oftentimes several colleges in a region. They may have all identified the right sectors, but there's no sense that the colleges are working together, approaching the sectors in a coordinated way, and there's certainly no sense that the WIBs are doing it, and we don't know if they're working together. So what comes up for us is we have to align our education and training and workforce systems around a common vision for a region, and all approach the employers in those sectors we know are going to grow together as one voice. So this is really an attempt to push this to a much greater level. And as the chancellor pointed out, California's economy is not a monolith. It's a bunch of regional economies that compete globally. So we can't drive this stuff from Sacramento. It's got to come from the bottom up, but we have to put the right incentives out there.
Senator Steinberg, we've heard regions, vision. This is your thing. So maybe tell us, what do you think about career pathways?
Let me try to answer this in a very specific way. Unless and until our state and our country assures that every 20-year-old is either on a pathway to a college degree or has a 2-year technical certificate after graduating successfully from high school, we are going to fall way short of our economic potential, and our young people, those 20-year-olds, are mostly on a pathway and a life that does not maximize their potential. We need more than just one-offs in this field, and that's not a disrespect to anybody who has created the one-offs, because many of them are spectacular, and helping one kid is helping save the world, as we say. We need systems change, systemic change. This is the way high school, community college, workforce needs to be across the board.
So that systemic change, then, you've been really pushing on this for the last several years legislatively, not one-off bills, but really thinking about what are the obstacles and what are the opportunities to push this to a systemic level. Could you tell us a little bit about how the state's policy framework has been changing to promote the systems and the work that you've been doing in order to make this possible, not just as one-offs, but as a real high school reform strategy?
Sure. Let me tell you what I've been doing. No,
Yes.
just let me tell you what we have all been doing together. First of all, the subject is not brand new to California. Since the 1980s, we've had the very successful partnership academies. And we have ROP, and we have a number of other very good models. But what we've done over the last couple of years, I would say half decade, is we've tried to evolve these concepts of school and career to a different level. And I might say not just to create high school reform, although that's been sort of the focus, but to create pathways that change the incentives and fundamentally connect public education and the modern economy. How have we done it? In two ways. Number one, we've tried to change the underlying system of how we evaluate schools. The API is like I dream about it every night, because it's the thing, the coin of the realm, and what's your API score? It's reported by the newspapers, et cetera. A couple of years ago, we decided to legislate in a way that would ensure that the original intent of the API was actually reflected in law, i.e., currently 100% of API scores in high school are based on standardized tests. Now, we're not going to have standardized tests this next year to measure the API at least, and that's fine. But that's what it's been. And thus the incentive to develop curriculum that is both academically rigorous and career-oriented has not been there, because the system responds to the signals. What we did in 1458 is say that in high schools, no more than 60% of a high school's API can be for standardized tests. And now the State Board of Education is grappling over the next year with what that other 40% ought to be. Well, it needs to be graduation rates to some degree, but it also needs to be real indices of college and career readiness, rates of admission to college or apprenticeship or certificate programs. That was a foundation. But the foundation and the incentives then, without the resources, not quite enough. Between SB 1070, is that the name? 1070. Was one of my bills? Yes, I just don't.
You don't dream about that one every night, apparently.
And the Career Ed Trust Fund, which I'm told is the single largest investment in the country in this area, and working together with Superintendent Torlakson and my colleagues in the legislature and Governor Brown, of course, we now have this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to combine that shift in incentive with the resources to actually create these pathways. And I couldn't be more excited about it. It's not the end. This is the beginning. And how we do over the next weeks and months and what we demonstrate, I think will tell a lot about the future of this movement.
All right. Well, it sounds like you're selling yourself a little short. You've talked about some of the high-level stuff that you've been doing, but one I know one that you didn't mention was the work to try to integrate, make it possible to integrate curriculum. And Fred Jones and others who were concerned many years ago about how even the highest quality career ed courses could not qualify for A to G for UC and CSU, which was helping to drive the high school curriculum. That was a few hundred courses that qualified, now 12,000.
Now it's more, and I don't want to dominate, but I think one more point, if I may, because that has been the change. And I've approached this work with a very specific philosophy, because when we started with this, you know, in the Sacramento parlance, there were the high standards advocates and the tech ed advocates. And what I saw was this fissure that couldn't create a movement because there was too much division. The very well-intended Warren Furutani bill of a couple of years ago that said to graduate high school, students ought to be able to substitute a career tech ed course for a foreign language course. Very well intended. I voted against it because it misses the point. Why can't we be teaching foreign language in multiple applied ways, including along the tech sector? And what we are trying to create here is a different kind of a movement that is not either or. We integrate academic rigor and career application across the board, whether you want to go to a four-year college and become a professor of physics, or whether you want a tech career. It doesn't matter, because it serves many different ends, not just workforce preparation and development. It happens to make the subject matter a whole lot more interesting for 15, 16, and 17-year-olds. And so this is across the board, not just niche and not just tech. Thank you.
So one of those, you'll be happy to know, Senator Steinberg, that one of those courses that CDE and university faculty and high school teachers and others have put together is a Spanish health translation course that qualifies both for A to G and for a health career pathway. So it's happening. So Lupita Cortez Alcala, you're the Deputy Superintendent Curriculum Instruction. You've got College and Career Readiness, Curriculum Instruction, Common Core, everything that matters. Could you tell us a little bit about, sort of building on what Senator Steinberg said, what are some of the other big picture changes in state policy that are driving this work on career pathways?
So we're in this perfect storm, right? The legislature, the governor, the budget's on point. But in addition, this storm has sort of been developing since really earlier, since the 80s. But it's gotten more, we've gotten quicker and more turbulent, I guess, as we've moved forward. And in 2010, of course, we adopted the Common Core state standards, which are moving towards, and the goal is career and college readiness. I mean, they're the anchor standards. I mean, it's all focused on that. We've just adopted the next generation science standards. It's about critical thinking, analytical, work-based, hands-on labs. We're moving in that direction. Our state's Smarter Balanced Assessment is going to measure that. In addition, the state superintendent, when we first started his term, he made college and career readiness one of his main, priorities. He understood that it's both. It's what Senator Steinberg said. It's being college and career ready is what we need to do for our young students. It's our responsibility to do that. So we developed the Career and College initiative, and we have 18 of those that we've been implementing slowly but surely. In addition, the API is being transformed. So it's not just this movement in isolation. It's the Common Core standards that are going to measure the critical and analytical thinking and problem solving and kids working together, and that's what college and career readiness is about. In addition, I think that our division, the College and Career Division under Russ Weichel and formerly Pat Ainsworth, that's here in the audience, also developed the career technical education standards that are now aligned to the Common Core standards. So this movement is aligned to curriculum. Our professional development is going to be aligned. So it's the perfect time to invest in this. Proven, if you know college partnership academies, they graduate students at 95%. I think they stay in college in the 90s. It's proven. What we need to do is regionalize it. We need to make it worthy and valuable to the industry in different regions. And so it's time for high schools to talk to post-secondaries and industry to make sure that it makes sense that we're doing what we need to do to improve the jobs and career opportunities for students, but also to improve the economy and to be globally competitive, as Chancellor Bryce Harris stated.
Great. So I see some of my employer friends in the audience who are at all the talk of API and curriculum alignment and Common Core are their worst fears are being realized, that they thought if they came to a CDE event that they would be not hearing their stuff. So let's broaden the conversation beyond the our K-12 world. And maybe start with you, Chancellor Harris, on this topic, because the community colleges under your leadership and Vice Chancellor Vontan Quinlivan, who's here as well, have really worked to try to reorient the college's system and its major investments in order to support that kind of real linkages. You mentioned doing what matters. And maybe you could talk a little bit about how that works, how that connects with this work, and maybe even specifically, I know a lot of folks in the room have heard of the sector navigators and the deputy sector navigators. I actually met one in Boston one day. They actually exist. Maybe you could talk a little bit about just sort of how you envision that working in terms of a way to bring together in meaningful partnerships, industry, colleges, K-12, and other partners.
You bet. If you look at the approach that we're trying to take, it really is to regionalize first and foremost, get colleges cooperating with K-12 and with business industry and the employers by region. And then, as Christopher said, to narrow that down into specific sectors. And so what took place over a period of a year or so were conversations at each one of the regional levels on which particular sectors were important to that region. And for example, many of the regions picked up on healthcare or advanced manufacturing. And in that given region, then the leaders of all the business and industry, the employers, the K-12 and community colleges created that conversation. And these sector navigators, which are really just individuals who are experts in that area, are then responsible for working together. And I think Senator Steinberg and his colleagues deserve a tremendous amount of credit for the trust, because what the trust does is it adds the resources necessary for those sector navigators in those regions to work together and develop those pathways. I think one of the challenges all of us faced in education was there was a period of time when parents and students didn't want to be tracked, and so consequently a lot of career and occupational education slid to the back of the bus. What we've now realized is that students may, in a health career pathway, for example, may be a technician or a healthcare provider, may be in the business side of healthcare or in the personnel side, or might be a physician, and they might be different parts of that career pathway at different parts in their life. So whether it's in automotive or whether it's in healthcare, whether it's in food service and culinary, regardless of what the sector is, if we can get the various interests to coordinate at a regional level using this trust as the financial leverage, that's how we're going to make California's workforce education delivery much more robust.
So, Tim, I know the Chancellor has said a couple of magic words for you, which are regional, sectors, and real employers. I mean, you are largely acknowledged as one of the most thoughtful, effective workforce investment system leaders in the country.
You got my email?
Well, I put that in the passive voice. I'm not ascribing that to any particular source, but I'm saying it. You are one of the most thoughtful, effective workforce investment leaders in the country. And you've been working really, really hard on the tough work of connecting these various partners and systems together. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how you see that happening in ways that can make the regions more effective, and then particularly on the employer connection, because we all, on all sides of the equation, whether it's the college folks or the K-12 folks or the employer folks, we all talk about employer engagement as a great value. We all want to see it happen, and we all agree it will, and then it often doesn't. So maybe you could talk about, as somebody who's like working at that intersection, how that actually can be realized in the real world.
This is terrible. I always have to go after the Chancellor, and I just want to say ditto. So it would be a great tragedy if, with this opportunity, which is huge, and hopefully not once in a lifetime, I hope it keeps coming, it would be a huge tragedy if we didn't take this opportunity to figure out how to align the broader workforce development system, employment services, education, and training at the regional level behind common visions developed at the regional level to solve regional problems. What we have now, and Annette Smith-Doring is on the State Workforce Investment Board and also on our Health Workforce Development Council, and she said a number of times, like other employers have, are different components of the system. Each has some requirement that they talk to business, get input from business, and that causes each component of the workforce system, schools, ROP programs, various CTE programs, workforce boards, colleges, everybody, even HUD employment-based programs, and we've got a whole variety of these things. they're all chasing employers separately. And they're starting to tune us out, or maybe they tuned us out a long time ago. They don't get paid to go to meetings. They don't have time to listen to all of us individually. What they need is for us to come together with one voice and talk to them. Sector strategies is a really great idea, concept, but we a lot of times talk about it, but we don't do it. Sector strategies means not just understanding a little bit about what the data says and what sectors have good jobs, like healthcare. It really means deep engagement and investment from employers. And this is where we fall down. And not just one-offs with a single employer, but approaching multiple employers within a sector so we give the broadest opportunities for job placement for the people we're serving. So strong employer investment, engagement, but not just a single employer in a sector, multiple employers in a sector. On the employer side, it's not going to work unless they come to the table and invest in meaningful ways. They have to provide work-based learning opportunities. They have to provide quality paid internships. We hope that we can develop more apprenticeship programs because we know that works. It's a great model. It's not just a European model. We've been doing it here for a long time with the trades. We need to expand it beyond the trades. I hear a lot from employers recently saying we have a skills gap and the system's not providing the skilled workforce we need to be competitive. Well, I say back to them, bring it. Bring your money to the table and invest in this stuff. You can't just employers can't just rely on the public workforce system subsidies to provide skills. They actually have to invest in people and capital development like we do in Europe and like we do in formalized apprenticeship programs. So employers, those of you in the room, and I know there are a bunch of you, I hope. Are there employers in the room? Mm-hmm. Okay, the rest of them couldn't find parking, that's cool. Y'all have to stop complaining about the skills gap and actually come to the table and invest in these things. Bring your partners, bring your colleagues within your sectors, provide pathways, help them map them out, help us understand what the skills are required along a pathway, help us identify and create the kinds of certifications and credentials that can be stacked so people can move along a career pathway and get a good job now, but a better job later. We can't do it without that kind of investment. So to the extent the public system is going around talking about sectors and regionalism, but not reaching out and engaging the employer community, then it's just gonna be the same old, same old.
All right. Well, that's sobering, but it's true. And I think one of the things that you emphasized early on was the notion that if I'm a principal and I've got an academy, a green tech academy, and I ask myself, well, how do I get my contacts with Intel and with SMUD and with these other companies? And Intel and SMUD are thinking, well, now if there's going to be, as a result of all of the changes that we've just talked about this morning around accountability and curriculum and funding and everything else, if there's going to be 2,000 green tech academies, I can't, if I'm SMUD or Intel, I can't deal with 2,000 principals and pathway leads. I need not even a district level system. I need regional systems in order to do the deep engagement. I want to come to the table, but I don't want to come to 2,000 tables. That's what I heard you say.
Absolutely right. The way we invest in training, education, employment services, we have to provide services based on political jurisdictions. And industry sectors and regions don't comport. The way employers hire and the way people get trained and the way people find jobs and the way people get to jobs don't comport with political jurisdictions. So we've got to look beyond that and find, I know this has become a cliche, but we've been talking about a lot, a study called Collective Impact. Have you guys heard about Collective Impact? Look, we've been doing that stuff for a long time. It's just somebody at Stanford wrote it down and gets credit for it. I hope Stanford's not in the room. But there's this notion of a backbone organization that should take the lead on behalf of all of us at the regional level, working with employers, and maybe you can do a backbone organization for different sectors. But we have to identify that as partners across the region and sort of hitch our wagons to a broader effort regionally that is not just about our programs chasing employers separately or employers going crazy trying to figure out how to find a trained workforce by going to different places. But hitch our wagon to a broader regional vision driven by a backbone organization that we can all trust, who kind of comes to the table as an honest broker. That's going to be the trick, and I've seen it start to play out in regions across the state. In Sacramento, where there's a lot of great activity around this. But I think at the state level, the way we spend money and the way we think about how programs should work could go a lot way in facilitating this regional coordination. We've got to remove the ridiculous barriers to this stuff coming together at the regional level, or it can't happen. So there's a requirement or a responsibility at the regional level, but we've also got a great responsibility in Sacramento.
Chancellor, you've talked about doing what matters and the work on economic development. This also has, you're not doing this as a public service only. It also is about your students. And one of the key areas of your leadership in the country has been around promoting completion and student success. And maybe you could just tell us a little bit how you see this intersecting with the work that you're leading there.
The challenges we're facing in helping students succeed in greater numbers are enormous. Just a couple of numbers, we have a little bit more than 2 million students in the system, and only about 1 of every 4 of those students, when they come to us, are prepared for college. So 77% of them need remediation in either math or English or both. Unfortunately, part of the reason, there's a myriad of reasons for that, is that in many cases students find the education leading up to college not of a great deal of interest to them. So one of the things we're finding is that embedding basic skills instruction, especially in math and in English, in those career tech fields that excites those students is a way for us to get more and more students prepared to do college level work. We simply have to figure out a way to deliver basic skills and remedial instruction in a much more efficient way. Unfortunately, if students get in that sort of black hole of basic skills 3 or 4 levels below college level work, they only have a 1 in 4 chance of ever making it out of there. So if we can compress that, if we can modularize it, if we can attach it to career tech areas that excite students, then we think we're going to see a dramatic improvement in that. I suspect that the implementation we're doing now of 22 recommendations that the Board of Governors approved about a year and a half ago to improve student success, we have about a third of those completed and have about 15 or 18 more that we need to get done. Once those are done, and we're going to be tracking that on a semester-by-semester basis. In fact, you can track it as well. Go on the website of any one of these colleges to a tool called Scorecard, and you can see how each and every college in the state and statewide students are doing in terms of transferring, completing degrees and certificates, getting through basic skills and career technical education. So we're going to be probably the most accountable system of higher education in the country, and these steps we're taking to improve student success, especially as it relates to remediation and basic skills, we think are going to have a tremendous impact on and put California ahead. I would call, by the way, to your attention a little handout that's in your packet. It has 4 really robust tools that I would encourage you to all look at. Doing What Matters is on there, and it can be looked at on a regional basis. In addition to that, you see the Career Cafe there and our new tool called Salary Surfer, where students and parents can literally go in and take a look at all these careers and see what kind of impact that could have on their compensation once they complete a program. So these tools, as you're looking at accessing the trust, I would really encourage you to use these tools to help you in that process. They're very robust, and California is leading the country in a lot of these tools for parents, for students, for policymakers, and it's something of which we should all be quite proud.
Maybe I can ask you and the Deputy Superintendent about dual enrollment as a particular topic, because I know later in the day we'll be talking in more depth about it. But many of these pathways intend to or aspire to a greater correspondence between the high school curriculum and the community college curriculum while the students are still in high school. Do you see, and there are a lot of barriers, legal and fiscal, to accomplishing that. Do you see an opening, and I'm going to come to you with the same question, Deputy Superintendent, in a moment. Do you see an opening to be able to tackle that topic?
Oh, I absolutely do. I've never seen a more cooperative spirit between K-12 and higher education, not only community colleges, but across the board. I'll just give you one great example. I saw the superintendent of Elk Grove a little bit earlier, and Cosumnes River College in South Sacramento and Elk Grove have a joint use culinary arts and food preparation program. And it is those kind of joint activities, this intersection from K-12 and community college and career technical education, that holds, I think, the greatest promise for sort of quick wins on ways to really gin up the attention of the employers in the state and perhaps leverage those investments you talked about, Christopher, getting employers to come to the table. Another great example in this region is Sutter Health's involvement with Sacramento City College and the surrounding high schools and healthcare in the nursing activity out in Natomas. Again, Sutter Health came to the table, invested pretty heavily, and we saw a tripling of the nursing output in this region over a period of just a few years. So K-12, community colleges, and industry, that's an intersection that I think is quite fertile for all of us.
All right, Lupita?
I couldn't agree more, really. I think that I envision a high school where you take some courses in high school. It's all about student engagement. Perhaps some classes are online, and perhaps some classes are at the community college. They don't all have to be seat-based, the required minutes. And it's sequenced. So it's what Senator Steinberg talked about earlier. It's about every student having some pathway, even if they don't end up in that pathway, just have some experience. Here in Sacramento, we have the Health Academy, the bioengineering. There are so many different really exciting, engaging topics that can happen not only in high school, but can be sequenced in a curriculum that goes into post-secondary. And I think that's what we're trying to do. And there's always those limitations with regards to funding. Let's just say it out loud. Whose money is it anyway? Is it the K-12 system or is it the community college? It shouldn't be that way. There should be opportunities for students to move seamlessly through both, and it comes at a cost, clearly. But we need to move towards that. I think that we've moved quite a bit through the local control funding formula and providing options. I think that we need to move it a little further to ensure that students have those options, so that there are some classes that you're going to take at a high school and there's going to be some classes you're going to take online, because that's what motivates or engages that student in that area, so that they can move further if they're ready to move further. And there are some courses, and what a better way to get them onto a community college campus, to keep them engaged and allow them to experience that. It's not the scary world, or it's not that difficult. It's something that they can do that keeps them engaged. I think that we need to start moving and thinking about how we can transform not only the funding structure, but also the current high school structure that we have.
So earlier, Tim mentioned that he hoped that this wasn't actually just a one-time source of funding, and your eyebrows spoke volumes, Senator Steinberg. In addition to the $250 million from the Career Pathways Trust, you mentioned SB 1070, which built on SB 70's investments that the state has been making in this work. The legislation that you've carried and others to not just continue, but radically expand the support for California Partnership Academies, protecting the partnership academies in the budget. Giving districts full local flexibility to spend 100% of their money on career pathways if they chose to. $100 million from the federal government potentially for Youth Career Connect. Those applications due at the end of next month. There's a lot of resources out there, but you've talked about potentially next year coming back. If you were to do that, if you came back in next year's budget cycle and said, I want to make one more push on this because we're at the tipping point to make this work really, really shine and really become something that's possible for all kids in California. What does success in what we're all doing need to look like? I mean, what do we have to deliver by the spring, whether it's in terms of the work that is underway, the partnerships that are built, the applications that are written, that would give you the strongest lift to be able to go back to your colleagues in state government and say, we're onto something here, and it's time to take what we invested in last year and double up?
Well, the premise, first of all, of your question is absolutely correct, which is that we have a short window here between now and, let's say, May of 2014 to demonstrate success. Because even though the state has a healthy surplus and it's anticipated that there's going to be a significant amount of Prop 98 money, the competition for that money is going to be intense. Whether it's more money for Common Core, whether it's the problems that the state teachers' retirement system, the pension system has, whether it's a whole host of other needs, including just more discretionary money for school districts. And so my formative experience in the legislature back in 1999 is when I was able to convince then Governor Davis and John Burton to put $10 million into the budget for mental health. I started out asking for 350, and I got 10. And between the passage of the budget that year and May of the next year, that department had done an excellent job evaluating the impact of that $10 million on 1,000 people, and had demonstrated big reductions in hospitalization, days of homelessness, et cetera. And it was compelling. And we were able in May of whatever year that was, 2000, I guess, to be able to then stand up and say, look at these results, we want more money. And we were able to successfully then get 55 million, and the 55 million continued the success, and it led to the Mental Health Services Act, Prop 63, now $1 billion a year for these services. When I look at this situation, the department is doing a great job, and the RFA is going to get out, I know, in January. And it's probably going to not be enough time to actually demonstrate the actual impact by May of next year. But let's accept that, set that aside for a moment, and this is the way I would define it. It's going to be the quality of the applications and the quality of the awards that are made by the Department of Education. If we see lead industries step up in collaboration with school districts, with high schools, and show what they intend to do with $5 or $10 million to, or whatever amount, to establish these pathways, and we can demonstrate that we're beginning to change the culture, not just within the public education system, but within industry as well. And that we're oversubscribed, as we are today, as we are in Fresno tomorrow, as we are in LA on Thursday. That is going to provide, I think, a great argument to go back. Now, not to give away total legislative strategy here, but one of the other things that we have here is Dr. Harris, because this money now, of course, the 250 Trust Fund, the community college and the K-12 system can be applicants, but it's focused through the Department of Education. Well, maybe we think about the next round administered or focused a little bit more on the community colleges, but require it to be articulated and connected to the high schools. And that way we've kind of built two ends of the same system, and the money has to go together. So one way or another, I can tell you this. Any modicum of success, which I'm very confident we're going to have, we're going to make this a priority to get another at least $250 million. We have to do this because this is too good and it's too important.
Chancellor.
I just want to add, I want to encourage all of us to listen to what Senator Steinberg said, and between January and May, when those applications are due, I really want to encourage all of us to work together at the regional level so that those applications show that we are intent on cooperating district to district and college to college by regions. That, to me, is the greatest message we can send in a very quick period of time to the legislature, that we really do believe we've found the secret approach to improving workforce education delivery in California at the regional level. So the senator's right. We obviously don't have time to show dramatic results, but if we can show a willingness to cooperate and work together at the regional level, I think that'll go a long way toward helping us in the legislature.
Ditto.
Did you want to?
I commit, as the director of the State Workforce Investment Board, that if Senator Steinberg puts money in our pot, we'll help to get there in an even bigger way. But even if it doesn't happen, and I hope it does, we commit to working with the Chancellor's Office. Vonton Quinlivan and I work very closely together. We work very closely with Lupita and with Russ to coordinate our efforts at the state level. And we will continue to lean on the locals to develop the kinds of partnerships that can make these things happen in the right way. And we're going to keep pushing that we have to communicate in a meaningful way with employers around sectors. We'll keep pushing to make sure we're identifying the right sectors by looking at data and again, not doing different analysis separately in our systems, but looking at the same data together at the same time at the region level. We'll keep pushing to make this happen. I would also like to say that I'm glad I wore black socks today, because this is really strange to have such. Never mind. You're like, where the hell is he going with that? We will. I lost my train of thought. We will continue to push. I found it. We will continue to push to provide technical assistance at the regional level. Also, our programs. The chair of the State Workforce Investment Board, Mike Rossi, who's the governor's senior jobs advisor, has tasked all of us to working together, also with GoBiz, to figuring out how at the state level we can kind of pull together our dollars in a way that will help to bring the regional partnerships together. We're calling it Slingshot right now. We've been calling it employment zones sometimes, although it sounds a little too much like the other zones, so we've kind of dropped that. But Slingshot meaning we can use our levers at the state level to help incentivize the regional partnerships coming together. So we're gonna probably pilot in a couple of parts of the state. In Inland Empire and the Central Valley, we have high levels of unemployment and low levels of educational achievement. To try to do this, which is, and if it works, and I think it will, we'll take this statewide. So I think this is really going to help.
Yeah, that's some great branding. When you said Slingshot, I know what the first thing that came to mind was partners coming together.
Thanks, Christopher.
Sure. So it's partly about applications. I would say, though, just as we come to a conclusion, is that in addition to putting together the collaboratives and the deep partnerships for really great career pathways trust applications in preparation for the spring, there's all the work that's already underway. There's so many pathways that are here today that are thinking about expanding, or districts that are going to district-wide scale, or in the AB 790 linked learning pilot that are already deploying this work, or that will, by the time May rolls around, may have already gotten their award from the federal government for Youth Career Connect. There's the funding from SB 1070 that's been rolled out from the Chancellor's Office. There's a lot of other support for the actual work to be deployed in addition to the development of high-quality applications in this specific program, all of which together could really put some wind at the sails on Senator Steinberg's ship. All right, let's please thank our panel, Chancellor Bryce Harris, Executive Director Tim Rainey, Senate President Pro Tem Darrell Steinberg, and Deputy Superintendent Lupita Cortez Alcala.